me today on Sew Stitch Hacks. Today it's another segment of Coven Conversations, and I'm here with Joshua.
Hello.
And today we're going to kind of talk about his path and some of the things that he has to say for people who practice. And I'd let you explain what you practice.
Well, my belief system actually stems from the Christian faith. The idea of following the footsteps of Christ and loving one another and trying to make the world a better place by sharing that love. And so it's really interesting. In my growing up, it was exposure to so many different belief systems that kind of inspired me to look at the similarities rather than the differences between them. And so in my view of the world, most of us are looking at what the Christians call God, but we just personify it or understand it in a different way. And so I try to take the example of Christ by not judging other people and just listening to what they have to say, because there might be truth in that I can learn from.
Now, I know there's a lot of people in the Christian community who get very upset when they see non-Christians. Specifically, I know in the witch community, you hear lots of horror stories of people who've been treated poorly in Christianity from either their approach to it or because of their different belief structure. And I know that can be a big problem with relationships. Maybe the differences seem to be too great for people and they don't believe they can be friends or in a relationship with someone who isn't Christian like they are. And I think that they feel that there isn't enough space for some other different belief systems, and they seem to think that anything opposing to that is wrong.
See, and from my experience, I gain so much more when I'm willing to be open-minded, when I'm willing to let somebody into my life and my heart and into my conversation. You know, I can't prove that I'm right. I can't. There's just not a way to do that. And one of the aspects of Christianity is that we worship and love a God that is unknowable, that is unknowable to our limited understanding of how the universe works. And so, with that in mind, there's no way that I can say that I'm right without putting some kind of fear or judgment in that. There's a little bit of scripture I had found. It was in 1 John 4:18. There is no fear in love, but perfect love casteth out fear, because fear hath torment. He that feareth is not made perfect in love. The whole point of Christ's sacrifice, of what he was doing for us on the cross, was making a new deal, of kind of throwing off the shackles of this not so pleasant God the Father figure in the Old Testament, and moving into a God that is made of love, that is putting that as the forefront and the priority of what we should be trying to seek and spread in the world.
I really do like that piece of scripture that you picked, because it kind of makes me think of when setting circle. One of the phrases you might say is, in perfect love and perfect trust, the circle is set. And that brings me to another question. How do you practice magic? How do you feel when you're in a circle where maybe the main deity or goddess of worship is someone like, say it's a ritual honoring Hestia or a ritual honoring Freya? How do you feel when you're in that presence in relation to your own God? How do you feel that affects that relationship?
Okay, well, and this is where perhaps I've delved a little deeper than some people that I have met and befriended in the Christian faith. I'm a little bit of a historian, and so I've delved back into the history of the Hebrews and found that they, once upon a time, they actually worshipped not just Yahweh, but also his consort that goes by the name of Asherah. And there's not a lot available, or at least there wasn't until very recently, on the existence of this goddess figure. But I think it brings a lot into perspective of why the Christian faith was very warlike, why it was seen as so aggressive when it was championed by the Roman Empire as well as the Roman Catholic Church. You see holy wars, you see people being abused and subjugated. And I think what really it can stem from is this idea that there was such a focus on this masculine energy God, whereas really even before he was written down, it existed as more of a partnership energy. And so that's kind of how I choose to look at it. Our minds, again, we're not supposed to be able to understand. And so we personify to gain a closer relationship with. And I think with God being all things, that means masculine and feminine. And so both of those aspects are so necessary to the perpetuation of creation, but also of the spreading of love. And so that's how I choose to look at it.
Yeah. So with statistics showing from like over the U.S. of paganism growing more widespread than Christianity, as surprising as some people find those statistics, how do you feel that more of the witchcraft community might work with Ale if they do decide to include them in their mixed pantheons, as most of us eclectic witches seem to do?
Well, I would say that I've met a lot of people that are kind of on both sides of the spectrum. They've had very negative experiences with Christianity, or they've had very positive experiences with Christianity. You know, I found God in conversation with atheists, Satanists, Buddhists, and 30 minutes later had a conversation with a set of Christians that were telling me with their lips that they loved me, but I did not feel welcome in that conversation at all. They weren't hearing me, they weren't listening to me, and they weren't opening up their heart. I would say that choosing to look at it from the perspective of it is one interpretation of the divine, it is one facet or aspect of it, would be more beneficial to them, instead of saying that there is just this one particular way of belief. It's more open-minded for them. There's something else that I found, and I wanted to read it because it kind of inspired me. This was in John 13:34-35. In the New Testament, Jesus said to his disciples, "A new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you have love one to another." And I really feel like for Christians, Wiccans, anybody that identifies as a faithful person, the idea is that we are here to enhance each other's experience, to grow together instead of apart. And so by that way, we all win.
Now, I love your book. It's got so many sticky, like little pins.
It's very useful.
The tabs are so lovely. I love tabs and sticky notes. As you've seen with my review of Your Fairy Path and the million sticky notes. But so here's a question inspired by the last thing you said. What would you say is a good division between being faith, between the faith and between the religion of your practice?
So if I had to describe myself and where I fit kind of on that spectrum, I would say that I'm more of a spiritual believer. The Christian church, as it stands as an organization, it's man-made, and thus it's faulty too. I don't believe that you need people to intercess on your behalf necessarily. I don't believe that I need to go to a priest to have a relationship with my God. In the same way, I believe that we each have a unique and innate connection to the divine, however that chooses to manifest for them or they choose to interpret it. And so, to that end, I don't think going to church is as necessary as it is to know how you feel, to have that conversation. Doubt is a powerful tool, and you have to decide what's right for you. One of the gifts of the Spirit that they talk about in Corinthians is discernment. God gives us the ability to discern for ourselves what is true and take from it the truth that we can. So, with that being said, that really to me speaks about intuition as well. You have to kind of follow that mind-heart connection, that union of body, mind, spirit. It's very, very important to continue in the practice that I'm going through.
All right, so from what we gathered today, there's been a lot of talk of just acceptance and so much love. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers?
Well, honestly, I mean, it's this really interesting dichotomy, because we're raised in a world that seems to want to label us and to put us into boxes and to make us fear one another, when really, when you view the world through a childlike perspective, when you look at it through innocent eyes, you lose that jaded, you lose that separation of me and you and everyone else. There ceases to be an us versus them. And I really know that there is a power in strength and togetherness. When we work together, we build a better world. And so that's what I'm working towards. And I think that when you guys challenge yourselves to love as you want to be loved, that's the important relationship. Love yourself, and it'll make it easier for others to share that relationship with you.
Alrighty, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me for Coven Conversations with Josh in Sew Stitch Hex. I'm Miss Izzy, and that's something to take with you to think about. Think about your community. Think about your friends. Think about your family. Think about the people that are different than you that you know. Find ways to connect and find ways to just interact with them in your community and your environment and try to build a better environment. We've talked about this before with leaving the broom closet or staying in it. Find ways to connect with everyone and kind of make your life better just by finding these relationships, by really interacting and involving yourself with others. All right, thank you so much. Have a good one. I hope y'all are able to like, subscribe, share with a friend, find something that you enjoy from this video. All right, bye.